Hey everybody, welcome back to MUFC versus everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are watching from. I am your host, Sean, and I'm so glad you guys are here today. I know it's a little different time. Like I said, especially in the summer, schedule is always a little off, but I wanted to do another video today, not taking a deep dive at a player that we're linked with or a player that, the press is talking about or a player that we're pretty much signing, but a player we already have in the squad. Obviously, looking at the thumbnail, today we're going to be taking a closer look at Amad Diallo, our young Ivorian winger, and specifically just what sparked this was the performance yesterday's preseason match against Rangers. Now, like I said many times, it's preseason, don't get too caught up, but watching Amad, it got me thinking, and then remembering some of his performance that we've seen from him later on last season and all the wingers we have at the club. We were linked with Michael Olise for a while. It got me thinking, and I've talked about this before, but do we need another winger if we have Amad? Did we need Antony? Did we need Sancho? These are questions that maybe we'll take a look at answering today as I take a closer look at Amad Diallo's career at United, a couple of the loans, his numbers, what he offers, and why he deserves more minutes getting into next season. So today, that's what we're going to be taking a look at. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. I know a lot of people are huge followers and huge supporters of Amad, me too. So let's get stuck in. Before we do, hit the like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Go follow me on Twitter, MUFC versus everybody, as always. And let's dive right in. Gather around. Let's all gather around the campfire here, and let's tell some stories about young Amad. Remember when we bought Amad Diallo? Do you remember that? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was our manager. That same summer, we also brought in Facundo Pellistri as well. And the plan at the time seemed to be, identifying some young talent and developing them and, building the next stars, right? And that's what United is basically known for. We look at these young players, we bring them in, we develop them, and then we turn them into stars. We did it with Ronaldo. We saw it with the class of 92, Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo, Marcus Rashford, and so on and so on and so on. And it's not every player that comes to the academy, not every young player we bring in is going to be that talent. For every Marcus Rashford, you're going to get someone like a Januzaj or someone like that. It's just, and that's not a diss on Januzaj. I'm just saying not every youngster is gonna make it, and that's just football. That's just life sometimes. But we brought in Amad, we brought in Pellistri, and they were young players for the future. Do you remember Amad's first goal for United in a United shirt? Do you remember that? I do. I remember watching that game. We were in the Europa League. We were playing AC Milan. He came on as a sub halftime, and he made a run into the box. It was just him and one Milan defender, and Amad got ahead of him, and Bruno picked him out with this just straight on lobbed pass. And as Amad is running, he beats the defender, turns around to see where the ball is, and as it's coming, he's back to goal. He heads it, lobs it over the Milan keeper and into the back of the net. I mean, who could forget? That was such a great goal, such a brilliant debut goal from a young player, such promise, such reading of the game, such skill, such precociousness almost. Like what other young player especially is gonna have the confidence and just that, again, that precocious mentality to put himself in that position and just take that on. Just, this is all I can do. This is what I'm going to do. And it worked. What a way to open your United account, right? Amad didn't really feature a whole lot after that, though, and he actually would spend the next few seasons on loan, both at Rangers in the Scottish Premier League and at Sunderland in the Championship. I did watch a lot of him at Sunderland because I liked him when we bought him. I liked him. I liked him. I saw from at Rangers, and I get ESPN Plus, so why not watch a bit of the Championship, right? So I wanted to see how he was doing. Say what you want about the Scottish Premier League, it is what it is, but if the Championship in England is no joke. They have a longer season because they play more matches. It's similar football, similar tactics, similar kind of just that relentlessness, that physicality. It's a good kind of primer for Premier League for these young players. There's no reason. I mean, there's a reason that we send a lot of young players and we try to get a lot of young players on loan at these Championship clubs or even these League One, League Two clubs, because it's very similar. It helps them build up some of that physicality. It seemed as though maybe Ahmad would be more involved this last season, right? But he did pick up that knee injury on the preseason tour, and he missed a lot of the season. It is what it is. When he got fit, though, Ahmad did make his way into the matchday squad. Now, the development of Garnacho and Ten Hag's kind of persistent hope that Marcus Rashford would rediscover his form saw Ahmad spend a lot of time on the bench, to the ire of many, many people in the United fan base, myself included. I mean, if you've been following the channel, if you've been doing any of that, you know that I've been pushing for him to get some minutes, especially over Antony. And Anthony's going to come up a lot today, but he saw a few minutes here and there as a sub, Ahmad. And then, again, gather around, let me tell you a tale. FA Cup quarterfinal, Liverpool, at Old Trafford. Cometh the hour, cometh the Ahmad, right? Oh, you guys remember this? Any excuse to tell this story, to relive this moment, right? So Ahmad came on as a late sub, and he was just a live wire from the first moment he set foot on the pitch in that match. I mean, if you can't get up for that occasion as a young player, if you can't get up for Liverpool at Old Trafford, FA Cup quarterfinal, what is the point of football, right? Just that's what we're here for, that kind of match. Ahmad was passing, he was moving, he was dribbling, he was putting in tackles. He was basically relentless in his his straight up harassment of Liverpool when he came on. He wouldn't let up, and that's what you want to see. So if you remember, late in added extra time, Liverpool had a corner. They put it in the box. It was deflected back out to the edge of our box. And that ramen noodle-headed kid picked it up at the edge of our box, failed to control it because he got some noodles in his eyes. Ahmad was on him in a flash. He stole the ball, and he was off. He and Garnacho just knew, we're done. Ahmad pokes it to Garnacho. It's 2 against 1. And they're blazing on the counterattack, right? Garnacho's on the ball. We're getting into the final third now. He pulls Liverpool defender toward him, leaving Ahmad with space on the left. Lays it off to Ahmad. Ahmad takes a touch into the box. Boom, left foot all along the ground, far post, beats Al's arm. And it's just freaking limbs. I'm talking absolute limbs in the Stretford end, right where we scored the goal. And then that stupid idiot ref gave him a second yellow for taking off his shirt. Quite possibly the stupidest rule in football, but it is what it is. Again, any excuse to retell that story and take a swig of this, right? Scouse tears. You'll always cry alone. In any case, that moment sort of kick-started in the season for Ahmad after his injury and after his recovery, and with good reason, right? You want to, when a player's in form, when a player's performing, not just when they're scoring goals, but when they're performing overall on and off the ball, you want to stick with that. You want to take advantage of that. Not only did he score that winner, thanks largely in part to his tenacity, right? Just his relentlessness to win that ball and launch that counter. But he, in that game, if you want to go back and look at the statistics for that game, he had 100% pass accuracy that game. And remember, he came on as a sub, only played around 30 minutes. He scored with his only shot of the game, completed 3 out of 3 tackles, won 2 out of 2 aerial duels. I mean, just impact, right? Impact. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would be proud of what Amad Diallo did that day. And he featured a bit more afterward as a result, right? Mainly used again as a sub. And I think that Ten Hag sometimes can be a little too kind of almost literal and guilty of thinking, okay, because something worked here, it's going to work. If Højlund comes on and does well as a sub, I'm going to use him as a sub. Ahmad came on as a sub and did well, I'm going to use him as a sub. Like, I think sometimes Ten Hag can be a little bit too strict with that kind of mentality, but that's another tale for another day. Ahmad had another great performance later on in the season against Newcastle, and that was 2 months later in May. He was man of the match against Newcastle. He grabbed a goal, he grabbed an assist, completed 24 out of 30 of his passes, created 2 chances, and he had 8 touches in the opposition box. He was causing problems. He was getting involved. He was carrying the ball. He was getting into the box. He was causing all sorts of problems. Obviously, you saw him pick up a goal, pick up an assist. I'm going to grab the lid to that real quick because that looks like it dropped on the floor. Don't want to spill my Scouse Tears energy drink. And it was during this time, you remember later on in the season, that Antony actually was starting to be used more and more as a substitute and less as a starter. I think, and I've said this in a couple of videos, it started to kind of get the impression that Ten Hag was kind of like realizing that Antony wasn't it. Like he just wasn't doing it. And he gave him some chances to come on as a sub, but where Antony was kind of always being shoehorned in the starting 11. Garnacho came in, Rashford's back, Ahmad's, and so it is what it is. I'll let you decide the reasons for yourself. Many United fans, however, felt vindicated in their support of Ahmad, and they're pleased for him to feature more frequently, again, myself included. So fast forward to yesterday. So yesterday, Ahmad started against Rangers in our second stop on the preseason tour. We played them in Ireland. Scotland. Sorry, my bad. I know that's a big no. Scotland. And he scored a brilliant goal in the first half, right? Picked up the ball on the right wing, cut it inside, beat a man, scored with his left foot. Like, he's done that many, many times. A lot of his goals he scored at Sunderland were similar goals coming in on the left foot. So that's what you're going to get with him. He also completed yesterday 25 out of 29 passes, created 3 chances, 2 out of 2 tackles, and he was, again, man of the match. And so, again, it's preseason. Yes, I'm trying to paint a picture here. And in any case, yesterday, Ahmad looked miles ahead of everyone on the pitch, both teams, Rangers and United teammates included. He was in terms of fitness, energy, and just overall quality. It was like he's literally, remember when we played Rosenborg and their whole team looked like streets ahead of us? That's basically what Ahmad looked like compared to everyone else on the pitch yesterday. He just looked like he was match fit. He was ready to go. He just had the bit between his teeth, and he was up for it. And that's what you want to see. Again, preseason, so I'm not going to look too deeply into it, but it was really good to see, and it kind of got the impression Ahmad was there to prove a point, and it sounds like Ten Hag was paying attention. So we've got Rashford putting in the hours this summer, training, getting back fit, and Garnacho has been developing very well in the last few seasons. Sancho is back in the squad. He and Ten Hag, behind closed doors, have apparently at least found some sort of common ground, whether that means he's going to be here next season or not. For now, he's in the squad. Obviously, Sancho started yesterday too. Antony's future is a bit of a question mark, as is Palestri right now. So what does this mean for Ahmad Diallo going into next season? Again, Ten Hag paid attention yesterday. He had nothing but praise for Ahmad after the performance. Ten Hag said, and I'm quoting, "We have to see Ahmad in a different way. Of course, he's still young, but he is not inexperienced anymore. Last season, he had bad times with bad injuries. Before that, he was in the championship, and he had a great season. He did have a great season in the championship. We're going to look at that in a little bit. At the end of last season, he had a very good time in our first team and played some good games. Now, for this season, this has to be the year. It's great that he starts like this. On Monday, he couldn't play. He was not allowed to go into Norway, but today he could play, and he played a very good game. So, sounds like Ten Hag, similar to Manu, Garnacho the year before that and everything. Sounds like Ahmad is up there. He's a big part of the plans. And at 22, so Ahmad just turned 22 like a few weeks ago or so, I think. He really needs to be playing just more for his career, for United. Not only does he have to show at this time that he's ready, but he also needs to start playing, or else maybe he needs to be looking at something else for his career. But today we're going to take a closer look at why Ahmad deserves more minutes this season and why he could actually force himself into the starting 11 this year. So let's get stuck into the nitty gritty. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, guys, and let's get to it. So number one, his versatility. Ahmad is very versatile in terms of a footballer. He can play kind of anywhere behind the striker in terms of, wide player, a left or right, and he can play as a number 10. At Sunderland, he played a lot on the right wing, but his excellent dribbling and passing and his reading of the game and his control and skill on the ball in tight spaces saw him played as a number 10, as a creative midfielder on multiple occasions. In fact, he was actually deployed as a number 10 like a dozen times, with freedom to roam, get involved, fill in spaces, go where he needed to go in order to get involved and make things happen. You don't trust a player like that, especially a young player like that, with that kind of responsibility and that kind of freedom, unless they have something, unless they can do it, unless they have the discipline, the discernment, the quality, unless they know what they're doing. Ahmad has good vision, good movement. Again, he's excellent at passing and dribbling in those tight spaces. It makes him ideal, and again, makes him very versatile in that front line. If Bruno needs a rest, because Bruno plays pretty much every minute, Ahmad can be a solid understudy in the number 10 role, especially if the aim in that moment, let's say it's in the last 10, 15 minutes, we're up by a goal or two, we need to maybe control possession a little bit, take this thing out of the game, play less long balls, play less risky balls, and maybe keep the ball on the ground, control possession. Ahmad could be an excellent option in that regard. If you want to keep the ball on the ground, play these high percentage passes, frustrate the defense, maybe cycle possession a little bit, Ahmad's your guy. Especially if like Sancho is on the pitch, for instance, something like that. Someone who's good with the one touch. Kavi Mainu, especially if Mainu's on the pitch, someone who's good in that. Ahmad could do that. So he's versatile, can play multiple positions, which is a bonus. I'm gonna grab some water here. Number 2, his off the ball work. Despite being an attacker, Ahmad's tackles, duels, recoveries, clearances, etc., are actually very impressive. He fights to win back possession. We saw that against Liverpool in the FA Cup. We saw it yesterday against Rangers. He was, fighting back and winning the ball back. I remember him doing that a couple times in the first half yesterday. If you look back at his time with Sunderland, Ahmad was actually in the top 15% when it came to interceptions as well, and for wingers. Very good. And again, you get those interceptions because you can read the game. You can position yourself and you can sense the danger where it's coming from, and that comes from having good reading of the game, good match IQ, good positioning. So whether that's a natural inclination from Ahmad to kind of also help out off the ball from a defensive standpoint, or if that's kind of pent up energy and eagerness to get involved in the game after missing so much football through injuries and minutes and being a sub, who knows? But no one will care what the reasons are as long as he's doing it and he's doing it well, right? No one's going to care. And it appeals to Ten Hag's, high pressing, winning the ball back, quick transition, kind of total football mentality. And so off the ball work, Ahmad is superb. Eye test. All right, number 3, the eye test. Let's start with the simple fact. Again, it's going to sound a lot like I'm bashing Antony. I'm not, but you have to compare it to some point to give a reference point here. And Antony just has to do that because right now Ahmad and Antony are the ones competing kind of like for that spot right now. But let's start again. The simple fact that Ahmad is better than Antony. Again, for the purposes of the video, this is what we're going to do. Ahmad looks more confident on the ball than Antony. He averages more successful dribbles per 90 than Antony, and he averages more accurate passes per 90 than Antony. Last season, he had the same goals and same assists, so 1 goal, 1 assist as Antony, and he had nearly 1,000 fewer minutes. Antony had almost 1,400 minutes total played last season. Ahmad had like 300 and some odd minutes in the league last season, and he same goal, same assist. He looks like when he's on the pitch, Ahmad looks like he's more in sync with his teammates. He looks like he's more in tune with the overall tactics. He knows where to be, when and where to move, et cetera, and he just knows what he's doing. Again, not trying to bash Antony, but again, it's between the two of them right now for a bigger role in the squad. We don't know again what's happening with Sancho. Garnacho looks like he's basically a starter. Rashford, is probably going to start if he's fit, just because that's what always happens. And then he might be out the door. So Antony's got a lot of work to do if he wants to stay and be considered. Numbers. Let's look at Ahmad's numbers, all right? So obviously he came in late in the season at Rangers, got pitched in, but he didn't start as much. I want to look at 22-23 season. Let's look at his time at Sunderland. Similar kind of physicality in terms of the league play and everything. He started 27 matches for Sunderland while he was on loan. He played 37 matches for them, averaging about 70 minutes a match. He picked up a crazy impressive 13 goals, 3 assists, 4 big chances for Sunderland in the championship in 22-23. And he was featured in the Team of the Week 4 times. That is excellent. That is what you want from your lone player to show something. You almost get the impression that he was almost like just too good. It was like when a youngster comes in and they're too good for the reserves, but they're not quite ready for the first team. That kind of gets that impression. We got someone in the chat. Brendan, if Garnacho is a starter, that puts Ahmad. It might, yeah. I think what we've seen from Garnacho too, and is what you're going to see from young players, because he is younger than Ahmad as well. Is Garnacho? It was again the one thing the one consistent thing you get from young players is the inconsistency, right? Ahmad and Garnacho. So Garnacho last year, he had his highs and he had his lows, and that's very, very normal. He's probably a few years away in terms from showing what he's going to deliver on a consistent basis. Is he going to be really, really good? Is he going to be like a 7 out of 10, or is he going to maybe just kind of be a flash in the pan here and there, a purple patch player? Yet to be seen. I think Garnacho has a lot of talent and a lot of potential, and obviously I love Garnacho a lot, but I don't have a problem with the players fighting for a spot. I think we're talking a lot about Garnacho putting him on the bench. I mean, Rashford's got to keep an eye out too. Rashford's form last season was abysmal. Who knows what's going to happen with Sancho either? So there's a lot of football as well. I mean, you're going to have to rotate, and I think the injuries last season saw us unable to rotate as much as we really wanted to. Ahmad was injured for a big part of it as well, and so I think now we're going to be able to rotate a little bit. We're going to give players, especially those players who are maybe having a dip in form, some time away, maybe to come on as a sub and have an impact here and there, get some confidence back. Who knows? But thank you. Appreciate the chipping in there, Brennan. So again, Ahmad's numbers at Sunderland are in the 2022-2023 season were very, very impressive. Very good on the ball, which we're going to look at a little more closely in a minute. But he was actually 8th in the championship that season when it came for successful dribbles per 90. So he is good on the ball. And you guys know how much I love it when a midfielder or winger who can carry the ball, not just look to make the pass. Like if you can keep the ball, if you can ride a tackle, if you can beat a man, if you can drop a shoulder and create space for yourself, I am just head over heels in love with that. I want that from everyone on my team if I can get it. Brennan says, looks like we have Sancho versus Rashford left, Garnacho versus Ahmad right, which is great. It is great, and that's what you want. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too. But I mean, what I would like us to get away from as a fan base, and I'm not accusing you of this, Brennan. I've noticed it a lot in the fan base, and I noticed it more when we signed Bruno. Instead of looking at it as players, pushing each other to compete, pushing each other to develop, pushing each other for rotation, it became like just either or. It had to be Pogba, Bruno. You had to be a fan of one, and that's it. And whoever you didn't like, they had to go. Like, why? Why did you only get one player in the starting 11? Like, just we can challenge each other. Pogba and Bruno are very different on the ball. Sancho, Rashford, very different players. Sancho and Rashford are kind of the perfect examples of the way I kind of look at wide players. One, I've said this before. There's your face forward wide players and your face inward wide players. So your Rashfords who are gonna get some paint on their boots on the touchline. They're gonna get forward, get their head down, and you've got guys like Sancho who will receive the ball and face inward the pitch and kind of playmate, kind of dictate stuff. Slow things down a little bit when needed. Dan James, face forward kind of winger. Antony, face inward kind of winger. It's just that kind of thing. Brendan says it's all about having the best players, and even the best players can't play. I mean, yeah, we can't, and we need to rotate more. And I think we will see that more now with that we're going to have fewer injuries, because what we've seen from United in recent years is we're consistently among the clubs in European football who have to play the most matches. In Ten Hag's first season, we played like the most matches in Europe. Bruno played like the most minutes of any player. Like, we have to be able to rotate, and that means having quality, and that means having rotation options who can challenge each other. If you have two really good options for either side in the wing, that's not a horrible thing. And City do it all the time. Real Madrid do it. We want to get to that point. So let's look at some percentile ranks here for Ahmad's time in the championship with Sunderland on his loan. So really good numbers. If you guys are fans of FBref, I'm a fan of FBref. This is where these numbers are coming from. A lot of green bars going on right now. Passes attempted, 90th percentile. Pass completion, 97. So top 3% for pass completion rate. And he's in the top 6% for progressive passes for 90. So again, he completed more than 5 progressive passes per 90. Top 6%. Those are passes that move the ball forward. You know how much I love that. Progressive carries, successful take-ons, top 15, top 12%. Again, he's good at the ball with his feet. He's good at creating space for himself. He's good at carrying the ball up the pitch. Basically, he's good at ball progression in wide positions. And he gets into advanced positions as well. And he causes a lot of problems. He was in the top 15% when it came to touches in the attacking penalty area. And he was in the top 12% for progressive passes received. So he's getting in positions to receive those balls in advanced positions as well. So he gets into those advanced positions. He causes problems for defenders. 11 of his goals at Sunderland were from inside the box. And we saw he's in the top 20 percentile for that, getting in those positions. By the time he gets into the box, because of that, because of his skill, because of getting on, he's only got one pass to make. It's not like he's in the final third and there's a couple more passes. He's in there, and he's got one. They're going to shoot or he's going to pass, and that pass is going to be a shot. And that leaves very little time for the opposition to do anything. He's going to pull defenders towards him. He's going to pull focus towards him, and he's going to lay it off for someone else, or he's going to take the shot. And that's what you get when you cause problems in the attacking area. Is you're reducing the steps, reducing the moves in that final phase of play the closer you get. And the defense has a decision to make. Someone's got to go to cover. Someone's got to let someone else cover. Someone's got to move. And Ahmad's good at that. They have no choice, the opposition, but to tackle him or leave him. And when they tackle him, he's causing problems because he was actually 6th in the championship that season for penalties won. So he's getting in, he's holding on the ball, and he's causing problems with his movement as well. Again, 8th in the championship for successful dribbles that season as well. Ahmad causes problems. And he was in the top 8% for shot creating actions for 90 as well. So he's very good in the final phase of play, very good in the final third. Much better than I think we've seen from some of our other wingers last couple seasons. So I don't think I need to ask necessarily, but would you like to see Ahmad get some more minutes next season? Would you like to see him feature a little bit more? Do you think that he's earned it? Do you think that that's the plan? Do you think he would have last season had he not been injured? What do you think that even looks like? Considering, again, Rashford, Garnacho, Sancho, and Antony, and even Pellistri, we've not seen anybody kind of heavily linked with moves away. I know I've said it before, it seems like Pellistri's pretty much on his way out because of all the loans, because he hasn't really featured, and because of those comments his agent made not too long ago either about he needs to leave because he's not playing. Who's staying? Who's leaving? We won't know until the end of August, but one thing's for sure, Ahmad has done enough, in my opinion, to show that he deserves more minutes. What we got here in the chat. Brendan, where do you find these stats? I find them all over the place, my friend. FBref is where I'm looking at these percentile ranks. Opta is a good one. I look at SofaScore a lot to show a lot of where people are ranking in the league. FootMob, I use a lot. You check out, the match stats and things like that. A lot of things. I don't tend to watch a lot of YouTube compilation videos. Not that they're bad. It doesn't show the whole picture necessarily. It's great to see some of those things, but I think looking at some of the raw numbers sometimes can help. Obviously, there's always going to be this lifelong war between the eye test and the stats, but I think that instead of looking at them as punching against each other or working parallel, they're intertwined. You can't have one without the other. You need one and you need the other at the same time. So Danny B, big up. Sean just popping in to say hello and hit the like button. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate it, man. How are things going in Beantown these days? Big up, man. Appreciate your help. Brendan, I agree. You don't have to look at the action, but what led up to that action and what happened after. Yeah. And again, I could see, eye test is important. Stats are important. And the big thing, for Brendan and for anyone who's been following me for a while, the big thing that I say a lot is context is key. So there are stats that can be misleading, like clean sheets. I hate the fact that clean sheets are what we use to determine the Golden Glove in the Premier League. I think that is ridiculous. You can have goalkeepers who barely face any shots because they have such good players ahead of them, and you have goalkeepers like De Gea. There was a season where David De Gea had more saves than Alisson and Ederson combined. He was nowhere near the Golden Glove. I'm not saying he deserved to win. I'm just saying clean sheets to me are not the whole picture. Pass completion, especially for center backs. When people talk about center back pass completion, don't just leave it at pass completion. You got to deep it. You got to see, are these progressive passes, long balls? Pass completion for a center back. If a center back is just passing 5 yards to his partner or 10 yards up to his fullback over and over again, each one of those is a completed pass. Look at progressive passes. Look at long balls. Look at all that stuff. Don't just look at pass completion. All right. And that's why context. We need context. Brendan wants to know, would you therefore agree that the stats that fan use to big up Bruno can be misleading? Sometimes. You can tell certain stats, This is why I look at percentiles and I look completion. When you look at raw numbers versus like a proportion, like a percentile, you can tell. It's kind of like when media, especially the media who don't like United, will report on a transfer fee in the currency that makes it sound the most expensive. Numbers can be used to further your agenda, to make something either way. But that's why you as fans can do a lot of the extra research on your own. So when you say the stats that fans use to big up Bruno, what kind of stats are you talking about? I've done some videos on Bruno in the past, and his stats are like, they're hard to argue against in terms of like him being a bad player. He's consistently in top numbers in the league for big chances created, assists. Like his first full season in the league, Bruno was a monster in terms of goals and assists. Like, there's not many players in the league, not many players in football who can do the kind of things that Bruno does on the ball. There are a lot of things that people don't like about him, but those things you can't really quantify, like his weakness and stuff on the pitch. Sometimes you can't really quantify that. There's not like an expected wines per minute kind of, an XW stat, right? Goals, assists, and everything make it look like he just makes a difference. I mean, goals and assists are basically what, how you win games, basically. It's hard to deny that when someone's getting those kind of goals and assists, it's like, well, if you didn't have goals and assists, well, it doesn't matter, because goals and assists are what you do. That's how we measure, victory. That can be the difference. I think that Bruno, and we saw a little bit last season, and this is where the stats sometimes don't tell the whole picture, because again, this is where the eye test comes in, is attempted passes, attempted long balls and things, not just pass accuracy. Bruno needs to calm down a little bit when it comes to the kind of passes he plays. And we saw that a little bit last season. He was kind of introducing a little bit more composure, playing a little more high percentage balls, keeping things on the ground a little bit. But again, you don't want to rein him in too much, like Pep Guardiola does to a lot of his players, because there's very few, a lot of passes, the kind of passes that Bruno makes, a lot of players just can't do. And there's a lot of things, Bruno, how many players in football would be able to get on the end of that ball from Johnny Evans against Burnley and put that in the back of the net like that? I mean, it's not easy. You can't use those stats if you look at our results, which were poor. Scoring made therefore zero difference. I mean, when you score goals and you win a game, I think it does make a difference. But I have said before that, and we know for a fact that defense and goalkeepers can be more important, and there's a reason. Like, if you read any of the Soccernomics books, they'll tell you for the longest time goalkeepers and defenders were severely undervalued in the market, because, like I've said in another earlier video, you can score 5 goals and still concede 6 and lose a game. But if you don't concede any goals, you're getting at least a point out of it, right? And so we saw a spike in defenders and goalkeepers in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, though. Guys like Alisson, Van Dijk, Maguire, all these guys were going for big money, because people are starting to realize and look at these numbers, as numbers are being more and more utilized in football, that they do make a difference. They do. And this is where you get the X factor. So we're talking about Bruno. There's an X factor with Bruno, and the reason they call it an X factor, it's kind of the broad way of it's something you can't quantify. You just can't. There's very few players who would try to do some of the things that Bruno does, or like Kevin De Bruyne does, or any players like Messi or Ronaldo used to. There's very few players who would even try to do that, let alone be able to pull it off. And we've seen that many times. Like, Antony will get the ball sometimes, and where we've seen some other players actually try to make stuff happen and actually pull it off, Antony just doesn't have the confidence sometimes. It doesn't back himself, and so nothing ever happens. Or Grealish, when he went to City. Grealish at Villa was very confident, very just creative, very, very expressive. He goes to City, and this is what I mean, like under Pep. Pep kind of weeds a lot of that expression out of his players, and it's very formulaic. This is the way we play. Pep, there's a reason that you say, like, oh, you can sub someone in Pep and it looks the same, because that's what he does at all of his teams. There's very little individuality, very little freedom, very little creativity and expression in a Pep Guardiola side. And it depends on what you prioritize. I don't think that a lot of people are going to prioritize. There are a lot of people who are probably willing to sacrifice some of that if you're winning trophies. I mean, it's just then it comes down to subjectivity, what your personal preference is, and I can't tell you that. That's up to you to decide. If you win a game but you lost 14, I mean, I mean, it is what it is. I think that it's difficult to maintain, and I think that we've shown that. I mean, Ten Hag's first season comes in, we get third, we get the Carabao Cup, 2 cup finals, we're winning games, and then last season, obviously, a big dip. It's hard to maintain those levels. You can win how many games? I mean, where were Arsenal at in that 22-23 season up until a few games left to go? And and again, this is where we can come have that battle between tactics and moments, system versus individuals. It's not always one or the other. It's finding a way to create a balance of both and realizing that there's room for both in football. There's room for eye test and stats in football. There's room for system and individual moments in football. There's room for a counterattack and there's room for tactics. Scoring a counterattack goal does not mean that you are a counterattacking side. It means you happen to score a counterattack goal. Now, if that's the way you set up, like if you're Jose Mourinho or something, and that's the way you play, then that's a different story. But you have to have context. You have to zoom the lens out a little bit and look at the bigger picture more often than not, and you get a clearer picture. And then you can ultimately, at the end of the day, everyone's going to have their own opinion. I'm urging people to add a little bit of context, to dig a little deeper, to widen that lens a little bit, to make sure their opinion is a little bit more well-informed one, if that makes sense. Brendan says, you need the experience to make the best use of the statistics available. Yeah, and you have to do both. So for instance, so if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I'm a therapist, right? I have a master's in psychology. So when you're going through psychology, when you're going through grad school to learn about it, you take assessment classes. You take an IQ assessment and a personality assessment class. Now, it's easy to administer one of these instruments to someone, and some of them are very long and very involved, but is do that and look at the numbers and say, well, this means this and this means this, but you don't just look at the report. You get a personal history, you get a self-report, from the individual themselves. And therefore, you take what you heard from the individual, what you know about their history, what you know about their health, their family life, all that, and you look at how that correlates with the numbers. And then you can start to see a clearer picture. Again, that's how numbers and eye test kind of work in football. Again, you can look at a number and say, oh, Harry Maguire completed 100% of his passes. Okay, well, watch the game and look at how many of those passes were 5 yards to Lindelof or 10 yards to Luke Shaw, as opposed to trying to split defenses, trying to find someone on the run with a long ball. Again, room for both. So went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but it's a good conversation to have, right? And I think that Bruno is obviously going to be a mercurial kind of personality at Manchester United. It's one of those things where you either love him or you don't, it seems. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying that's the way it's kind of seemed since he's arrived. But if you want to know a little bit more about some of that context, I did do a video on Bruno the other week after we had some fresh links to the Saudi clubs. And then the video is basically called, Would You Sell Bruno for 100 million, basically. I did a little bit of a deep dive in there, offered a little bit of insight on some of the criticisms of him as well. And I've had my own, if you've been following the channel. So take a look at that. So getting back to Ahmad real quick, though, to close things out. In my opinion, Ahmad has been better than Antony. I would argue that Ahmad has actually been better than Jadon Sancho in the United shirt. And I think that if Rashford, too, doesn't get it together, doesn't kind of step up this season after his dip last season, Ahmad could very realistically jump ahead of any three of these in the pecking order in the match day squad on a given day, depending on what he shows in training, depending on what he shows on a given match day. He could very easily do it because he's performing on the pitch whenever he's been called upon, and I don't think that can be argued against. Competition for the starting spot, like we were talking about earlier, typically means players either improve, they challenge each other, they challenge themselves, they motivate themselves intrinsically to kind of take it to the next level, or they get frustrated and they leave. You see it in all sorts of businesses, all sorts of fields of life. It is what it is. You either have to raise your own standards or you're going to dip out. We will see what happens, though, next season. But all Ahmad needs to do right now is get his head down, focus on his fitness, keep doing what he's done and what he's been doing when he's been given chances. And Ten Hag will see that. Ten Hag has already seen that. Ten Hag is a smart guy. He's a good manager. He knows what he's doing. And so I think that we've seen that after that match yesterday. I think Ahmad's probably next in line to start featuring a little heavier. So Let me dip back into the live chat here to wrap things up. Brendan, man, I appreciate you getting involved today, man. I love it. Brendan, Ahmad brings direct danger that the other three don't. Yeah, Ahmad reminds me a little of like what we've seen from Palestri at times, where he wants to get forward, he wants to get into the area, and he wants to find teammates and create something. I think Ahmad just better at it than Palestri, and he's shown that. Whether it's been on loan or whether he's played for United, and I think Ahmad also offers a little bit of that off the ball defensive output that we've seen sometimes from Antony here and there, but not as frequently as we would like. I just don't think that Antony offers anywhere near what Ahmad offers. And it is what it is. Not every player is going to be cut out for every league in the world. And I think that we're seeing that Antony just maybe isn't cut out for the Premier League, but it's not up to us to decide, is it? Peter, going by my eye test, Ahmad should definitely be getting more starts this season. Should be big for him. Yeah, I think Ten Hag said it best when he said this is the season, right? It's going to be a big season for Ahmad. He's 22. He just turned 22 recently. He's at that age where we're like, okay, he's either going to be featuring in a larger role here or he needs to go elsewhere. And that's not me saying he's not doing enough. It's just everybody right now has a decision to make on Ahmad. I think this is going to be a big, big season for Ahmad. This might be the season for Ahmad where we decide, okay, are you here for the foreseeable future, or are you better elsewhere? Do we just not have a place? I think it has a lot to do with Sancho, Antony, Palestri, Rashford, Garnacho, because we have a lot of attackers right now. It's so odd to me that we were linked so heavily with Michael Olise, Neto, some of these other Doué as well. We were linked with. It's very odd to me that when we had this wealth of wingers in the side. I said when we signed Sancho, and I wasn't here when we signed Sancho, obviously, but I was saying, and it wasn't a dig on Sancho. It's at the time we had other pressing needs in the squad. We didn't need to spend that much on a winger. I said the same summer we signed Antony. We have these other players. We don't need that right now. We have other needs in the squad. And for some reason, every manager we've had wants to buy a winger. So, all he got in damn James, and he brought in Sancho. Ten Hag brought in Antony. And so it is what it is, but we'll see. Brendan, this is how a channel gets more live viewers. If people get more involved in the chat, that's why. Exactly, man. And I've said it many, many times. I'm not here just to share my thoughts. I'm more here for your guys' thoughts. I don't want to just be a bumper sticker, right? You just put your thoughts out there and then nobody can respond. I want to actually engage. And it's been great as the channel's been growing the last month or so alone. A lot more people getting involved, a lot regular viewers getting involved, a lot of people taking time to come in and share their thoughts. And it's been awesome. I do appreciate that. I appreciate you guys today coming by. Peter, Brendan, Danny B stopping in. Danny, he's a regular on the channel. Love it. KD's usually here. KD's one of the mods. He's usually in here bigging up the channel. So I do appreciate everybody. Peter says, I won't be surprised if Sancho leaves before the season starts. I won't be surprised if he does. The problem, again, with Sancho is the wages. We pay our players too much, and hopefully that's going to stop now that we've got new people in charge. But it's the reason we couldn't sell Harry Maguire last summer is West Ham wanted him. He didn't want to take a pay cut, and we paid him too much. Sancho was on a lot of money. De Gea was on a lot of money. There's a reason David De Gea is still technically free agent, although I saw something that he might be going to Real Betis. We pay our players too money, and we can't sell them. Pogba ran out his contract because nobody wanted to buy him. It is what it is. If Sancho were like Antony was on 20K a week at Ajax, and now he's on 200K a week at United. Like, we're never going to be able to sell Antony. It's just not going to happen because whoever was in charge of that transfer was an idiot. But we'll see if Sancho. I think right now the thing is, this is maybe Sancho and Ten Hag have talked and said, basically this is shop window for you right now. Get a few good matches in preseason under your belt. Show maybe that you can just get along and just get your head down and work. And maybe we can get like a loan with an obligation to buy or something out of you. Maybe we can take half the wages and let someone else come. Maybe if it's a Juve or maybe Dortmund want to put their money where their mouth is after they were twerking for him in the second half of last season. Who knows? But we'll see. I think, like I said the other day, if everything is fine between Ten Hag and Sancho, a fit and firing Dortmund level Sancho at United is not a bad thing at all. That's nothing but a good thing. We're still choking on the wages, but if he's performing, then I don't think anyone's going to care. right? It's like those add-ons that everyone likes to automatically tack onto the Lenny Euro fee. Like if we're paying 10 million in add-ons, it means we're winning trophies and no one's going to care. So Samuel Luckhurst, The Athletic, ESPN, they can throw out these giant numbers all they want to. They could put them in the currency that makes it the highest number possible that they want to, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Fact is, a lot of clubs wanted Lenny Euro, and now he's at United. And I'm not going to sit here and say, he chose us and this and that. It's just, it is what it is. Peter says, yep, the wages is mad. When you think that Tony's on 20K at Brentford, looks like Ineos is trying to get more reasonable wages. You have to. There's a reason we're in this FFP PSR nonsense. Is because of the money we pay for players, and the money we pay to players, and that leads to the fact that we can't sell players. You know, the biggest sale we've had recently has been we've had Cambuala, Greenwood, Dan James we bought, but then we sold him for profit. I think Dean Henderson, which we probably didn't get a ton for. And then before that, it was Cristiano Ronaldo in 2008, 2009, that whole era. We're not good at selling players because we had incompetent idiots in charge of the recruitment, and they just show up. They'll either pay what people want right off the bat. They'll have to pay through the nose just to get a player to come, like Di Maria. Or we'll sit there and we'll haggle all summer, chase one player for 2 months, only to pay twice as much as the original price in August after season has already started and nobody else has a choice but to charge us that much. So it is what it is, unfortunately. I can't remember who it was now. Do you guys remember that story of when we were trying to buy Achraf Hakimi? And I can't remember who it was that went, if it was Woodward, if it was Arnold Murtaugh, whoever it was. They went in to meet with the player, and they didn't know who he was. Like, they had no clue who Hakimi was. Like, these are the people who were making some of the most important decisions at that club at the time. Like, this is what we were dealing with. So, you know, let that be what it is. It's just, it's frustrating. I'm really hopeful that moving forward, it's going to be very different, night and day. I like what I've seen from Ineos so far. They're looking at the club kind of globally, as in everything involved: training, stadium, community, first team, all that. They're looking at all of it, the recruitment structure, because they realize how important all of it is. All I got to work as one. It's like the parts to a computer. You know, if one of these parts is not working well, it's going to impact the whole thing. And so we need to make sure we're getting all that on top of it. I think they've realized, they've been upfront with the fact that it's going to take a while. It's not going to be an overnight thing, and that's okay. I don't think anybody realistically demands, the Premier League right away. It would be great, right? No one's going to deny it, but I don't think anyone's expectations are high. I don't know what your guys' expectations are. I think we'll have to wait till the end of the transfer window to kind of see what we're thinking. I'm going to try not to base it simply on transfers because I don't think that's super realistic, but we'll see. But that is going to do it for me today, you guys. I appreciate everyone stopping by, taking a closer look at Amad Diallo, his numbers, what he's done in United, what he's done on loan at Sunderland, which is a very kind of similar physical league, what we've seen from him, and why I think he deserves more minutes. I've been crying out for it for a few months. It sounds like maybe that's the plan moving forward for next season. What does that mean for our wingers? What does that mean for Amad Diallo? This is a big season for everybody, Amad included. So I think that it's good to have that competition. It'll be interesting to see where he features in the matchday squad, where he features in the squad in general. But let me know your thoughts. That is going to do it for me today. I'm going to do one more quick stop into the live chat and see what everyone's saying here. So, Brendan, it means the contract extensions are going to be an issue unless the players accept lower wages. Talking about those wages, yeah. Peter, it was like the biggest club in the world has been run by amateurs. No wonder. I would even take amateurs, honestly, compared to what we've been doing. And the medical staff, I forgot to mention the medical staff. That needs to be a whole overhaul. Like I said before, man, our medical, it's Dr. Pepper, Dr. Seuss, and Dr. Dre just chilling in the medical room somewhere at Old Trafford. That's what we have. I would even take those three over the medical people we have in charge right now. Our medical staff is horrendous. But all right, y'all, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys for stopping by. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Go check me out on Twitter if you have Twitter. MUFC versus everybody. I'm a little bit more vocal sometimes on matchday stuff. I've been more vocal this week regarding some of Arsenal's and whatnot, but it is what it is. Come back and do another video. I have one prepped and ready to go in case we get some other signings. Hopefully we'll get some signings. I mean, we saw signing announced last Sunday. Maybe we'll get an Ugarte, here we go, or something later on tonight. But, I will be back if those kind of breaking stories pop up. I'll be back to share my thoughts on those, get your thoughts, most importantly. Appreciate the love, appreciate the support, appreciate the interaction, engagement, you guys. KD, my guy, caught me at the end. No problem. Go back and watch the video, man. Leave a comment after the fact. I'll get you. So that's going to do it from you guys. Take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys on the next one. Later.